Hello again. Anti-racists depend, in a sense, on the very existence of racists. It is often the way. The supporters of this or that football team must have rival teams to denigrate and sneer at. It is part of their hobby. It's the same in many fields, from religion and politics to literature and art. People like to champion their own chosen ideas and then use them as a stick with which to beat those fools who are so blind that they cannot see that they are wrong. The one thing anti-racists secretly dread is the end of racism, for without this enemy they would be bereft of purpose. I suppose some would drift off and join the Conservative Party or something, or take part in Just Stop Oil protests, but it wouldn't really be the same thing. This is why racism must never be allowed to die out, and if it shows signs of waning in our society, then that just means that dedicated anti-racists must search harder so they can uncover ever more implausible instances in order that they can continue to ride their chosen hobby horse. I thought it might be interesting to look at the origin of racism, because those with differing political views all tell lies about this and try to attribute its invention to those of whom they disapprove. Some people in the comments on this channel, who are probably broadly right-wing, I suspect, sometimes claim that it was Trotsky who invented the word and concept of racism. This is, of course, because such people often don't like communists, and especially Jewish communists. People on the political left, though, tell quite a different lie about the origin of racism. Here's a book by a professor of sociology called Ali Ratansi, who is very left-wing. The book is called A Short Introduction to Racism, and it is published by the Oxford University Press. The first sentence of page 1 reads as follows. The term racism was coined in the 1930s, primarily as a response to the Nazi project of making Germany Judenrein, or free of Jews. This is just as much a lie as attributing the invention of the word to Trotsky, but because Ali Ratansi dislikes Nazis more than he does communists, he thinks he will lay the blame on them for coming up with racism. As a matter of fact, both ideas are wrong. It was an American soldier who first was recorded using the expression, and thus inadvertently popularising the idea itself. In a speech he delivered in 1902 denouncing racial prejudice against American Indians, General Richard Pratt said, "Segregating any class or race of people apart from the rest of the people kills the progress of the segregated people or makes their growth very slow. Association of races and classes is necessary in order to destroy racism and classism." It is unlikely that Pratt coined the term, but this is the first verifiable time that it appeared in print. After all, the other expression he uses, classism, had been circulating for 60 years or more by 1902. It's highly possible that the word racism had been floating around before then, but simply hadn't appeared in print. Once it did appear in print, though, something about the word caught people's attention, and by the beginning of the First World War in 1914, racism had definitely become a thing. It will be observed that from its very first recorded use, racism was regarded as a bad thing. Like classism, it was something to fight against. This is how racism has always been, something of a bogeyman. One seldom, if ever, meets a person who says out loud, "I am a racist." But anti-racists openly admit their own stance, and you come across them all over the place. Racism is always something to oppose rather than a belief that people express their support for. In that respect, it's a bit like white supremacism. You won't often meet people who introduce themselves as white supremacists, but it's common to see people described in that way in a disparaging fashion. Why, I've even seen people describing me as a white supremacist. I wonder how common racism and white supremacism actually are. Are they fringe interests? Are there really any adherents to such ideas at all? Or are these terms just handy for people who like to portray others as being knuckle-dragging Neanderthals? Is there really a racist movement in Britain, or is it largely an illusion, carefully nurtured by those whose political creed requires the existence of such a thing? By the by, more than one person has said that they find my tendency to end these videos abruptly a little disconcerting, and they've asked that I give some indication that I'm about to vanish from the screen. I am at something of a loss to know what I could say. Maybe something like, "That's all, folks," the way that they used to end the Bugs Bunny cartoons at the cinema.